UConn, blue blood. Where do they belong in this conversation? If they win a national championship this year, they would have 5 titles on their resume that would tie them with the Duke Blue Devils, who are absolutely a blue blood. North Carolina right ahead of them with 6, Kentucky ahead of them with 8, UCLA at the top of the list with 11. Those are your traditional blue bloods. For some reason, it does not feel that UConn is considered in that group, at least right now. If they win this year, Rob Dauster, would you consider your UConn Huskies a blue blood?
I still think that they are a step below, right? I think that Kentucky, Kansas, UCLA, Duke, North Carolina at this point are in a league of their own. And the reason I say that is because they've gone through multiple different eras and been dominant and been the best programs in college basketball. UConn didn't become this level until the late 90s, right? Now, if they go out and win the title this year, you will have seen them reach the peak, go all the way down to the bottom. They were like second to last in the American in 2018 when Danny Hurley got the job, and then come all the way back to the Big East and ascend that mountaintop again. And when you could do that as a program, to me, that's what kind of screams blue blood. It doesn't matter how bad things get. You're still, the peak is still here, but I can't put them in the same conversation as those other programs just yet. Now, if Dan Hurley gets another one in the next 5 to 6 years, that's when I think you have to have a real conversation about it. But for me, it's you got the blue bloods, which are Duke, Carolina, Kansas, UCLA, Kentucky, right? Did I miss one? No, it's those 5, right? Yeah, you got those 5, and then UConn is at the top of that next tier with the likes of Indiana, with the likes of Villanova, with the likes of Arizona, like that kind of a school. Does that make sense?
I think so. Tyler, what do you think?
No, I agree with you. And UConn, to me, I've never really I would say maybe Duke. Listen, UConn is an iconic school for basketball. I mean, I'm not sure they're that far. If they are a step below Duke and North Carolina, Kentucky, all these other places. It's not a major step. And the reason I say that is because they've had great players. They've had great history. Calhoun was an amazing coach. I mean, you look at Ray Allen, Kemba Walker, Emeka Okafor, Ben Gordon, Charlie Villanueva, Rudy Gay, all these guys. Not many programs have alums like that. And so when you start talking about people like that, you start talking about UConn, it's known for basketball. I'm not really sure what else UConn is really known for on the big stage. I'm not affiliated. I'm not, running around UConn much. But when I think UConn, I think of UConn basketball. And I wouldn't say they're a major step off. I would put them right there on the top, especially some of these blue bloods haven't really done much recently. And I know UConn is making its way back up to the top.
Yeah, but the only thing, like, UConn's got a 15 to 18 year history of basketball before this year, right? 18 to it was like the late 90s to the mid 2010s. Today's episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play college basketball pick'em, where you can get a little extra sweat during March Madness and win real cash prizes simply by picking player stats in this weekend's games. In pick'em, all you do is predict whether a player will go higher or lower on Underdog's projected totals, whether that's points, rebounds, whatever. For example, if you're like me and you think Zach Edey is going to go nuts in this tournament, pick higher on his points projection, add up to 4 more picks, and if you hit them all, you can win 20 times your money on a single game. Underdog's slick mobile app is easy enough that dummies like Jeff Goodman have even figured it out. So go to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app and use the code FIELD, FIELD, and Underdog will match your deposit up to $100. Now is the time to get in on the madness. So remember, UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code FIELD. That they were at that. To me, that is just Jim Calhoun doing what he does great instead of UConn being this great elite powerhouse program. Now, if Dan Hurley gets it back to that level after that dip, like that, then all of a sudden you have to have they're a blue blood. They are what they are.
How does this play into this though, Rob? Because I think you're right as far as longevity goes in this conversation. Like we're what, 2 decades really removed here that we're talking about this era for UConn where all these other quote unquote blue bloods, you're going back 50 plus years. when I think about what separates UConn from that second tier, though, and I whether to put them in tier 1 or tier 2 or in a tier of their own here, it's the fact that even when considering Calhoun's career, if they were to win a national title this year, you'd now be talking about 2 more titles with 2 different coaches since Calhoun was on the sidelines. Like, there aren't other programs that can point to that at all. And I don't know if that's something about, like, UConn has this magic when it's a weird year, when there's Final Fours that are wide open. Like, it would be insane if UConn wins it this year in the same fashion that they did however many years ago it was when they're playing Butler for the national championship, right? Like, it's crazy it's broken out that way, but I think that does matter in the blue blood conversation when you start counting titles, and UConn has 1 more than Kansas does.
Yeah, no, look, trust me, I get it. And I'm probably as biased as anybody, but it's the idea that they had 1 era. To me, it's about more than just, if you're a blue blood, then it doesn't matter who the coach is. And I know that they won 1 with Ollie, but that one that they won with Ollie is like, it's a bunch of Calhoun's players and Kevin and Shabazz Napier going nuts. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like Kevin Ollie built something on his own there. Whereas Dan Hurley took this from the ground up, and he built it quicker than Jim Calhoun did. And it took less time for him to get it back to the elite level than it did for Jim Calhoun. Now, a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that, you know, there's pedigree there, but I do think that to get to the blue blood status, it's got to be more than just the Jim Calhoun era where you're the elite of the elite. And I think that now, I mean, they're number 1 in KenPom. They got this great recruiting class coming in. They're going to be in the mix with any portal kid that they want because of the success of like Naheem Aline and Joey Calcaterra and these other guys. Like, they're back. They're going to be back. I have a hard time putting them at that same level just yet. In terms, like, if we're talking about the history of the sport. Now, if we're talking about the 2000s, then yeah, UConn's up there with anybody. But if we're talking about the history of the sport dating back to the 50s, you know, UConn they've been relevant for a third of that timeline. Does that make sense?
I think so.
It does to me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it does. I would just say, I guess, like, if it happens this year, then now we are talking 2 eras, though. And then that's where, like, it becomes harder to separate them from that tier, right? Because there aren't programs that can span multiple eras like this. We'll see. It kind of, like, comparing it to Villanova, to me, it's kind of like where would we put Villanova until there's a post Jay Wright era, right?
Well,
but then
they won the title in 1985. I know it was as a 9 seed, but
yeah, true.
Yeah, so right now I think that they're kind of in that same category, right? They're not quite what the big 4 are. And honestly, I would probably have UCLA a little step below the 4 blue bloods. Yeah, I mean, they won a whole bunch with John Wooden. They've won 1 title.
Are we coming at John Wooden?
They've won 1 title since Wooden.
I am. And I mean, it's too far.
Yeah, let them know,
I mean,
Tyler. Let them know. Let them know.
It's too far. I mean, you got to dust off the history books to look at the national championships. So here's my point: is I think Gonzaga might be more relevant in a few years, even though they haven't won a title. It feels like they're more of a powerhouse than UCLA, and to my opinion, because we're always talking about Gonzaga national championship game, Final Four this year. What if they won it? It's the final year that Few finally gets a national championship. Well, Gonzaga has been pretty relevant too. I wouldn't classify them as a blue blood, but I would say they're maybe a step below what a blue blood would be considered.
Yeah, I think you're right. They got to get a title to get to that level. Like, I know it's nitpicky and the tournament is weird and fluky, but like, you got to get into that conversation to the very top tier. You got to have a title on your resume. Greg, how old are you?
I am 29, Rob.
You're 29. Okay. Do you know how old you were the last time that UCLA won a national title?
No.
You were still wearing diapers.
Sounds accurate to me.
Unless you were you're a child of LeVar Ball and you were out of diapers when you were like 7 months old. Right? That is not what was happening in my toddlerhood. But like, I mean, listen, I get the whole history book thing. I'm not a big history guy when it comes to ranking these programs, but like, there's something special about UCLA. Like, we're not going to knock UCLA down a peg as the winningest program in college hoops. They've still been awesome. I think we just did.
I don't think that's fair.
I think we just did.
But like, Like what? Who are we putting them under then? If we're saying bring them down a peg, who's ahead of them?
Just under. I think it's Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, and North Carolina, and then it's UCLA, UConn, and they're probably a little bit above you. But I don't think it's a top 5. I think it's a top 4. Then you have a conversation about UCLA.
Okay, but where is UCLA in that order though? If we're saying that's all a tier,
Probably number 5.
You're putting the team with the most titles last in that group.
I think I just did it. A
team in that group was in the NIT this year.
Yeah.
Like,
and they won the title.
Hey, easy. All right, we won it in 17.
Saying.
All right, listen, we won.
They've
it
won
in 17.
3 titles
Right.
since they won 3 titles.
Oh,
since
actually, excuse. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We got to be a factually correct program here. They weren't in the NIT this year. They were too good for the NIT.
Hey, NIT not in the tournament, so that's
yeah.
That's true.